Hey everyone, and welcome back to Don't Open That Door. I'm Justin, and I'm trying to figure out if the bear does actually shit in the woods.
I'm Nico, and this movie is why I do not celebrate Arbor Day.
Well, I'm Dan, and I'm Ash Ketchum.
And real quick, before I forget, Nico, you did remind me, trigger warning out here for sexual assault because this movie contains a depiction of that, which we will be discussing later on. So we are here today to discuss The Evil Dead, the 1981 cut. That's right, the one directed by Sam Raimi, starring Bruce Campbell as Ashley, Ash Williams, Ellen Sandweiss as Cheryl, Richard Demonto as Scott, Betsy Baker as Linda, and Teresa Tilly as Shelley. So we open with a group of college students heading out to a cabin in Tennessee. When they arrive at the cabin, two of the students, Ash and Scott, end up exploring the cellar and they find the Naturom Demonto and a set of recordings from an archaeologist who discovered the book. So that book, by the way, is like totally a Book of the Dead, evil book type scenario. So Scott actually plays the tape and the recordings dictate how the archaeologist found the book, and man starts like spitting out demonic phrases and all that. Some of the others protest, but Scott lets the tape play out, and as a result, the demonic phrases actually awaken some demons. Darn.
Oof.
Nico, predictably, what happens?
So the students begin to get possessed, like you imagine they would, and Cheryl tries to run away. She runs out into the forest trying to get the fuck out of Dodge, and she gets sexually assaulted by a tree / the forest / a bunch of vines. It's not great. And Ash tries to take her away from the cabin once she gets back after hearing her protestations. But unfortunately, the two find that the only bridge back to town has been mysteriously destroyed. So they head back to the cabin, and Ash listens to more of the tape, trying to figure out some way to fix their problems here, and he learns that the only way to properly kill a possessed person is to dismember them. So, at this point, people start getting possessed more and more and turning into demons just in droves, leaving the very few members of the crew no choice but to get down to business and show their knife skills, chopping people up.
I mean, less knife, more axe, but I take your point.
I mean,
Dan, what's the conclusion to this, Dan?
Well, things get worse from here, and eventually Ash is left all alone versus the demons. He brutally fights off the demons until he manages to get his hands on the Naturom Demonto again, tossing it into a fire and killing all the demons in a bloody climax. The movie ends with Ash walking out of the cabin as the sun begins to rise, but one last demon appears and rushes towards Ash as he turns and screams. The end.
All right, well, there's nothing to it but to do it. So let's go ahead and get started, shall we? First off, how does this movie look, Dan? How does this one shine in the light?
Well, there's a lot of blood.
Yes.
And there's a lot of gore.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it also looks like an 80s movie, sort of low budget 80s kind of flick. And
Because it is.
there's a lot of blood. There's definitely a lot of scenes where there's blood. And there's even scenes where like this one possessed dude, I think it was Scott, like something pops out of his stomach and blood just like gushes out like a fountain or something, like a hose. The costume design was interesting. Again, kind of low budget. You can definitely see like people's makeup on their face, and then the makeup just kind of stops. So like their neck is not really makeup or whatever, and it looks kind of goofy sometimes. But to be honest, even though it's kind of low budgety, like there's a lot of gore and stuff, and I was kind of impressed because I feel like that would be really expensive to do really well. So I was actually kind of impressed with how it looked.
Yeah, I kind of feel like for me, probably my favorite part of this movie was the visuals, in terms of just like the creature design and the different monsters, and definitely the blood and gore. I like that quite a bit. I wasn't the biggest fan of one or two of the scenes. Obviously, this was one of those where, due to the budget and budget constraints, they couldn't always show you everything that they probably would have had they had a bigger budget. So there's a lot of cutaways in some of the action, You know, they kind of really save up their stuff for the big climax where you actually get to see a ton happen. But there's like a lot of cutaways from certain things, a lot of like scenes where literally you can tell it's a doll. Like it's literally a doll.
Yeah.
Like on screen, which I found to be pretty funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's probably my favorite part of it. Nico, how about you on the looks?
I honestly really liked the character design and the demons sort of appearance. I thought they were all really, really just disgusting looking and gritty. And they kind of went like, it's like you were saying, Dan, and like you were also saying, Justin, like this is something where they didn't have droves and droves of a budget to, you know, be lavish with the appearance of stuff. But the performances that the demons gave and just the overall atmosphere made it sort of have like it made up for the like parts where like someone's neck was just like not done up, or like where there might have been a doll there. Like the overall vibe of it helped the lack of, I guess you could call it, visual fidelity.
Mm-hmm. Well, why don't we go ahead now and switch tracks to sound? So, Dan, what's good with the sound effects in this one?
Well, just like there's a lot of blood and a lot of gore, there's also a lot of screaming and a lot of screeching in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
There are scenes where there's just somebody screaming for like a good minute straight. And it makes the movie very hectic and very, I can't think of the right word, fear-inducing, maybe?
Frenetic?
Frenetic,
maybe?
that's a good word, yeah. And I feel like it kind of puts you in the movie a little bit. And I think it adds to that frantic, frenetic nature of the film where the characters are feeling that, and then you kind of feel that too. And there's scenes where, like, especially near the end, I think it was it Scott maybe? Or one of the characters who's possessed is like attacking Ash, and they're both just like screaming bloody murder, and then Ash like cuts the head off, and it's just like, no, it's one of the girls, I think. And the head is just like gushing blood on him, and he's just still like, it's just lots of screaming. And I was like, yo, like that makes me feel like I'm there, because that's I would be screaming too. Like, hell yeah. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I know I'm kind of harping on the screaming part, but I think that really sucked me into the movie a little bit more.
Nico, how about you? What's your take on the sounds?
So one thing that I really liked with the sounds was the jump scares, actually. I really, really liked the way that Sam Raimi handles jump scares. In particular, there's one that I want to highlight that viewers might not realize is a jump scare, but definitely is. It's very early in the movie when our cavalcade of soon to be dead teenagers arrives at the cabin, and we have a cutaway. I forget what it was that was going on right before it. Maybe it was the scene where what's her face was pulling a Lorraine Warren and just like drawing in a book without realizing it, and suddenly ends up with the Necronomicon or whatever the fuck it's called in this one on there. But anyway, after that scene, I'm relatively certain it's after that scene. After that scene, there is a really jarring cutaway to a blender going off, making a smoothie, and it's loud as all fuck, just like the rest of the movie. But in this case, it is one where just like the framing and pacing of it, I thought was particularly well done, considering how off the rails the rest of the movie is.
Now, from my perspective, I agree with a lot of what you two said. There was definitely a lot of screaming in it, Dan. There was definitely a lot. I mean, for me, I really get nothing special out of the sounds. Like, nothing really stood out to me personally. I thought it is what it is. I thought, especially given the limited budget they had and everything else like that, I thought, they rocked with what they had. Nothing really, I don't really have anything extra to add, I should say. So, moving on. We know that this movie right here, this shit is a cult classic, right? Like, it has a ton of fans everywhere, spawned mad sequel, series, remakes even, video games with Method Man rap verses.
Skyrocketed. Yeah, skyrocketed Bruce Campbell into stardom.
So what makes this one a cult classic? What about this lends itself to being a cult classic? Who wants to take a whack at that?
I think for me, a lot of it's the sort of over the top nature of the film. I find that a lot of cult classics are just very over the top and very often low budget as well. Not always, but
Yeah.
often. And, there's just so many scenes in this movie that they go farther than I think a lot of movies, even modern day movies, do.
Mhm.
I mean, you see them chop up people. Like you see them chop two, maybe three people into pieces. Like you don't really see
Yeah.
that very much. And that's not a common thing. And yes, they're chopping people up, but it's not so much in a really, I don't know, terrifying way, as weird as that sounds. Like, if you watch some like grotesque serial killer movie and he's chopping somebody up, that's a very different kind of chopping somebody up than this movie is. And I think just sort of that whole vibe, that whole feeling to it is really kind of, to me, what helps pull it into the cult classic territory.
I think I know what you mean by that. Like, this is the type of environment. Like, imagine you were in this environment, right? Like, placing yourself in the shoes of the characters by way of, watching a movie and having this vicarious experience. I would also be wanting to chop motherfuckers up. Like, it almost seems like that's. I'm not coming up with the word that, but like, it's not conciliatory, like comforting, like reassuring. It is reassuring that they're doing this. Like, oh, okay, they're actually taking the steps to do this. They're doing the smart thing. Yeah. And so like it just through how everything else is so balls to the wall, just gratuitous, everything at like 11 out of 10. I think it's almost like comforting to see that like, oh, okay, good. They're actually being a little bit smart about this in the fact that they are, chopping motherfuckers up, as violent and, disgusting as that is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and they also make it fun, I think. Like it's not super serious, whether it was supposed to be, or whether it was intended or not, I don't know. But it's a more fun watching experience.
Definitely.
I think one thing that has made this movie into a cult classic and kind of why it has the staying power that it does is that horror generally is about, and I guess I could say this about cult classics as well, but like there's oftentimes like a relatability element to it. And if you could see yourself doing some of the things that like some of the characters were doing in the movie, that's one thing. And also just like there's also, because I was reading some shit about cult classics the other day, not even relating to this at all, but like when people feel like it's like you said, Dan, like a low budget type joint, it helps you feel more connected to it. Like especially if you were someone who kind of like saw this back in the day when it dropped and it wasn't necessarily like beating down the doors on like every single thing when it first dropped. Like it eventually did, but at the start it didn't. And I think all that stuff kind of like, and plus the fact that it just has some shit like Dan said as well, that like people chopping people up and all this other kind of shit. Back then it showed a lot more than used to get shown back in the day. So I think that all that stuff kind of combines. And I think when you really look at, the legacy of this movie, I mean, Cabin in the Woods is like kind of, like this is probably the biggest influence on Cabin in the Woods, I would argue. Just like the general plot and everything else. Like this is probably to me one of the biggest influences on Cabin in the Woods.
Definitely.
So I think, that alone kind of speaks for itself. Any thoughts on the legacy of this one outside of what I said?
I mean, it's honestly, I feel a little bad, like still being somewhat of a new person to horror within the past like 5 years or so. Like, I don't know Sam Raimi's material as well as I feel like I probably should. Honestly, the only other Raimi films I've seen are the Spider-Man ones, not counting or wait, no, he didn't do No Way Home. But yeah, just like the other Spider-Man movies from the 2000s. So like I know he's a figure in the horror scene, but I'm still pretty like uneducated on his back catalog. So
Apparently he did Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, though.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Dan, any thoughts on the legacy of this joint?
Not particularly, aside from just it becoming a cult classic and, like you said, spawning multiple sequels, video game, all sorts of stuff, like all sorts of different media from it.
As well as just like tropes. Like, sorry to interrupt, but like I can't think of another movie where we have, you know, that we've reviewed rather. I'm sure they're out there, but I can't think of any other movies that we've reviewed where people go camping and go into a basement and suddenly there's demons everywhere. Like, that seems like something that has popped up a lot since then, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just, again, maybe this is another thing where just like I still haven't seen as much as like I'm sure even a bunch of our listeners have. But
True enough. Well, time for us to talk about one kind of maybe not so great aspect of this movie's legacy, which is when Cheryl heads into the woods and then she gets assaulted by a tree.
yeah.
Sam Raimi has since gone on record as saying like he kind of regrets that scene a little bit, and it probably might not have been the best judgment at the time. Thoughts on that scene? Did you think it was completely unnecessary? Like, how'd you feel about it?
I'm not a fan of including rape in movies in general, and even accounting for the fact that like demons are going to be demons and do demonic shit. Like it, I feel like if they were going to have something like that, then they could have either done less or have it happen to fucking like everybody. And not just like pretty girl du jour.
So I have two thoughts on this. First is, from my perspective, I viewed it as pretty fucking unnecessary, considering that the demons literally, no, not even no pun, I mean it like that, but like literally the demons are like not sexual to anyone else. Like, they don't do anything like that. They don't make any quips, anything like that. Like, nothing at all. And to me, it's almost kind of like, and this is the only way I can really describe it. It would almost be just like, you know, like you're playing like a fucking like, I don't know, you're playing like a fucking fighting game or something like that. And like your friend plays it and, you know, he just barely loses, or like, it's like whatever. And then you play it and you get like insta kill, like 1,000 hit comboed, like fatality. And it's like, damn, why the fuck did you go so hard on me for? And it's kind of like, they went unnecessarily hard on that chick, yo. Like that was, I thought that was mad out of pocket. Like compared to everything else that happened in the movie, I personally found that to be like mad out of pocket. And not even like a, ooh, this is so shocking, it's pushing the boundaries type thing. It was more so I was just like, this shit is kind of out of pocket personally. Like it doesn't even fit with the rest of the movie, which shows because nothing like that ever happens in the movie ever again. So I don't know. I thought it was mad out of hand personally.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with both of you. I think it is kind of out of pocket, and I mostly agree with Nico too, where I'm not really a fan of having like rape scenes in movies in general. And this, I might have to clarify this because this is probably gonna sound fucked up, but unless it's like an integral part of the story or something like Perfect Blue, right, where that scene in that event triggered everything else in the movie, basically. So, like this movie, like Justin said, it's just completely irrelevant. Like it just kind of happened, and nobody else does anything like that. Nobody else. It just happens, and you're just kind of like, well, that was kind of weird. And yeah, I don't really like it.
So I will, however, and I did want to let our opinions and everything get expressed first. Now, I do know why he included it though, and it wasn't just like the general thing. So a lot of really niche sci-fi and horror movies, I'm thinking specifically of a couple off the top of my head right now, they basically would often have scenes like that where there would very often be just like a hot chick and you knew she was going to get sexually assaulted at some point in the movie. It's a pretty seedy side of like the sci-fi horror thing that no one really talks about anymore. But like it happened so often in the 70s and 80s where like, especially with like some real lesser known joints. For example, it's what is it? It's either
Did it
like,
happen in Slither, or am I misremembering?
I don't know, but it's like there's this one joint. It's like Galaxy of Terror, maybe. That movie came bundled with another one, and I get that one mixed up. But there's literally a scene where like a chick gets like basically sexually assaulted by like a tentacle worm monster for no fucking reason. Like it just happens. And it's just like, yeah, there's a bunch of movies where that shit happens. So like the first time I saw this movie, I was like, yup, there goes another one. So like, this wasn't like, I guess I'm just trying to contextualize the environment.
This isn't the only one to do it.
Yeah. Like this wasn't like a Sam Raimi original. Like, no, like this had been something that had been in the industry for quite some time. And it was something that, and you know, attitudes probably have changed over the last like 40 odd years.
His have, you know, thankfully.
But like literally that is something that I would say is an attitude in the industry that we're expressing right now that was not always present, because
for sure
back then it was definitely a thing that used to go down. So
I mean, so much of horror is like the value of it is the schlock. Like you go into a horror flick, like none of these characters are gonna be at like, you know, fucking Oscar-winning performances for their depth and their backstory. It's you go to a horror movie to watch motherfuckers die. Like the only person who has any kind of staying power is Ash, because he's the one who the series stars around. And like, I guarantee you within 5 minutes of stopping recording this, I'm going to forget all the other characters' names right all over again.
Yeah, pretty much. I agree with you there. And I also agree with Dan's take as well. I think Perfect Blue is a very good example of something like that. But I want to ask now, we kind of talked about it a little bit, but how does this one stack up with some of the other 80s joints we have seen? So I'm thinking of your Nightmare on Elm Streets, your Halloweens, your Friday the 13th, you know, like let's hold this one up against those, or maybe even Night of the Demons, you know what I mean? Where, like, how it is, what, I can't axe? So how does this one react? You know, how does this one rock? How does this one rock to you?
Halloween. I was about to say Halloween's fucking garbage, but it's not. I want to read, just never mind. Nope. Night of the Demons is fucking garbage.
You're fucking garbage. How about that?
You're fucking garbage. How about that?
How about that?
How about that?
All right. Hold up. Wait, let me go talk to a prestige horror gentleman, Dan. All right. Dan, what's really good? How does this one stack up, do you think, to some of the classics?
Prestige horror gentleman.
Yeah, bro. There you go.
One thing I thought was interesting was near the beginning, a couple times throughout the movie, we get sort of the stalker vision, the first person vision from the demon kind of thing. Yeah. Which, you know, happened. This movie came out around the same time as Friday the 13th. I think just after, but I mean, they were filming it, I think, before Friday the 13th came out, I think. And granted, as we discovered when we watched, what was it, Black Christmas, I think? You know, it has been done before, but I found that interesting that it wasn't like, I don't think Friday the 13th influenced this movie and this movie couldn't have influenced Friday the 13th or whatever. But
because, you know, linear nature of time.
Yeah, you know. But I just found that really interesting, actually.
Well, I'm just going to say it. I don't think this stacks up to them at all. I actually don't really like this movie at all.
Pew,
Spoilers.
pew, pew.
But yeah, I mean, if I want to watch, the only thing I would say this achieves, well, I can't even say that. Because like, I feel like if you want to watch like a bunch of people get murked, I feel like Friday the 13th is better. I feel like if you want like something that's more like a stalkerish kind of just real suspenseful vibe, Halloween is a lot better. I feel like I don't know. I like Freddy better than I like any of the possessed people. The one thing I will say this has on all of them though is the gore, and the blood and the violence. I think this is more violent than all those movies. Like the only scene that really stands up is the nightmare one where like the bed explodes into the blood fountain. That's like the only scene that really stands up to this movie. Outside of that, this movie is definitely like a more violent and more bloody gore fest as opposed to compared to those ones. But that's my take. I want your take now, Nico.
Yeah, this is something that it looks at its contemporaries and it just like turns it all up to 11. And that's what I like about it. That's what really got me going with it. Like, I spent most of my time watching this movie with my mouth agape, and it takes a lot to do that nowadays. Just seeing the sheer gratuity of it all and the level of violence and blood and gore, like, it's a fucking lot for a film that came out in 81. It's a fucking lot, mates. So that's how it stacks up to me.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Now it's time for the what would you do? Oh. So
we're not listening to that fucking tape.
Nope.
Well, okay, first and foremost, the official DOCD stance, shit would never happen to us. So I'm gonna keep it real with y'all, right? If us and maybe, you know, like a couple folks headed out to they hit kind of close to home with the Tennessee joint. It was a bit too close. It was a bit too close. Normally these don't happen so close to the secret residence. But
I mean, you know, The Exorcist and
we haven't watched that one yet. We ain't watched that one yet.
and Bunnyman Bridge.
Relax. We never reviewed that. We never reviewed that.
Horror classic.
We never reviewed that.
Everyone knows their first time when they watch Bunnyman Bridge.
But if we went to like an Airbnb or something like that, and then in the basement there was like the Book of the Dead and some tapes, I assume we're just saying fuck it and we're out, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
we're just not staying there. But what I want to know is, let's say you just, I don't know, they were like, Dan, Nico, and Jess, can y'all like run back into town real quick and grab some supplies? So like we do that, and then by the time we get back, they're like, whoops, we played this demonic tape and now there's demons everywhere. And like
we get back, and just like with our Friday the 13th reviews, we get back and there's something's wrong because they're all missing.
But I'm saying, like, let's say we're stuck there, you know, like the car won't start up or the bridge is destroyed. What would your plan of defense be against what would later be known as deadites, but we call them demons? What would you do? Would you just start like chopping or what?
Real talk, I would try and find my man Squatchy. I would see if I could find my man Squatchy to help out, because he was going to town on some motherfuckers in Monstrous.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Against those Wendigools? Come on, bro.
Right.
He would have that shit handled.
It's not a bad idea.
How about you, Dan?
I feel like I would just like group together, post up in one room, and just not leave the room. Give everybody a weapon, and then just like stay there.
Yeah.
What's your
also,
weapon?
can I say really quick, this is something that I think is significant. I don't think the Warrens could have handled this one.
No, this is a more physical threat.
That's true.
Yeah.
What's your weapon of choice to fight these things with?
Give me a classic baseball bat full of nails.
Okay. Dude had a chainsaw there. I would use the chainsaw.
I feel like
though.
I feel like this is stereotyping a little bit, but
you would use sugarcane?
Oh, hey. I have a cutlass. You know what I mean? Personally, I stay with the cutlass. Like, people don't understand this, okay? I stay with the cutlass. So, but would, you know what I mean? Like, crossing state lines with that could be a little bit, you know, little sketch. So
see, that's why you bring the sugarcane.
No, bro, in the 80s, Tennessee, that wouldn't be sketch.
I guess that's true. That's true. But if it happened, I'm talking about nowadays. Nowadays. Yeah. I'm not trying to get caught with, you know, the cutlass on me. So I would then in that situation rock a hunting knife. I think would be the best go. Personally.
Didn't Scott have a hunting knife?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Oh no, wasn't it a Sumerian
Didn't help
knife?
him very much.
Oh, maybe. I don't know.
Somebody had a knife. Someone had a knife.
Ain't a Sumerian knife that one special kind of thing that like kills the undead or some shit? Or am I thinking of some?
Thinking of
like Game of Thrones? No, that's 1. No, 2. No, 3. Go on to whatever you're gonna say next.
Wow, hateful bastard. No, I just wanted to know personally. So the DLCD stance is, I guess we post up with our, you know, with our things out, so to speak, and we just get ready for like whatever's gonna come our way. You know what I mean?
Seminole Squatchy.
Would you balk though? would you balk if, like, say we're there with our significant others, like some of them were, would you balk if they turned back to life and they were like, Justin, please save me. I promise I'm back to, it's me.
I would know
you gotta
that's a
help
trick.
me.
For sure, I would know that's a trick. Fuck
Bro,
that.
listen, I have like a zero sympathy for the demonic in me. Like, sorry, not sorry. Like, once I saw you go ghost, like once you hit me with the Danny Phantom, it's over. Like, we're not,
Damn.
we're not, I'm done. Like, any relationship between us is severed. Like, I can't be, you know, digging out no demon guts. You feel me? So that's just how I operate. So yeah, nah, it's a wrap.
You'll only get into a chick's guts if they're not demonic.
That's a fair statement.
Yeah.
That's a fair statement.
I don't know.
Whoa.
There's some.
Whoa.
There's
Whoa.
some. I seen some of the girls that you're into. They got some tastes.
Bonus episode coming out soon. The Thottery of Justin. Moving on. Critical review. Where do you guys think this one sits on Rotten Tomatoes?
I think it was pretty high.
Really goddamn high, yeah.
Well, all I got to tell you is you're not wrong there, champs. Can I get a number though?
I'm gonna say 89.
Nico?
I'm gonna say, I'm gonna say a 94.
Fuck you. It's a 95, so Nico
Damn it.
wins. I swear you fucking are a cheater, bro. You
I
cheat.
never do. I purposely
Statistically,
avoid that shit.
statistically, you win too many. Statistically, you win too many. I want you to know. I
Hey,
want you
look,
to
man,
fucking know.
it's a coin toss.
It's not a coin toss because you keep winning. Anyhow, this has a 95% from critics on Rotten Tomatoes, an 84% audience score. So audience liked it maybe just a little bit less than the critics. But what really matters is not what anyone else thinks, but you, because you are the most important person. You know, it's your opinion.
That's
really.
true.
You're right.
I say that to everyone. You know what I mean? So
He's talking about me though, not you listeners, like me specifically.
well, go ahead, me, who is Nico. Why don't you go ahead and lace me with your score? What do you think this one's at?
I'm giving this an 82.
Okay.
I don't know that I really enjoyed this more than this like shocked the fuck out of me, and it took me for a ride. And like honestly, the only thing that I really didn't vibe with was the, you know, arboreal tentacle rape bit that we talked about earlier. Like, that's just not fucking cool. But the rest of this, you know, it was a roller coaster ride from start to finish. It was wild, but it was, I don't know, it wasn't necessarily something that like ascends to that zenith for me. Still good, but not quite up there for a 95 like the critics gave it.
Okay. Now, here's another question. Dan, where are you at with this one?
I'm right there with Nico, 82. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun, but I wasn't like madly in love with it. I was entertained. I liked sort of the over the top gore. It was fun, but it doesn't quite get like the upper echelon to me.
Let it begin.
All right. I'm going to keep it real with everyone here. Okay. I'm going to keep it. Yes, I will let the hate flow through me. I don't fucking like this movie, yo. Just like straight up, I don't like this movie. I realize this is just my opinion. Obviously, opinions will differ. So if you got to hate on me, go ahead, bitch. I'm ready. But point being is this. From start to finish, I think all these characters are entirely forgettable. I think that literally nothing of note really happens to anyone with the sad exception of Cheryl. But like literally this is just, we got there, we got possessed, gore and blood and guts ensues, and then whatever else. Like it, for me, it just didn't hit. And I thought about why, because like I've seen this movie twice now. The first time I saw it, I didn't like it either.
How old were you when you saw it the first time?
A year younger than I am now. I saw it for the first time last year.
Okay.
Nice.
But
Quick fast.
basically, regardless on all that, I think part of the reason why and hear me on this. You know how like when you eat an ice cream and you done out the whole ice cream, you can't go back and re-ice cream that same ice cream. It's done out. Like it's finished. You know what I mean?
I mean,
or even if your ice
unless you
cream
vomit
melts.
it back up and then eat it like
check
a
this.
dog.
Like, you know, like if your ice cream melt, you freeze it back.
Sure.
It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
No. When you freeze
It's
back,
still ice cream though.
when you freeze back a melted ice cream, it become ice.
Like a little bit more, I guess, liquidy. Yeah.
See what I mean? See what I
Yeah.
mean? So I think maybe I don't like this movie so much because
Did this movie need to sit in the freezer a little longer?
Well, because I think the descendants of this movie I like more on a personal level. And as a result of that, I don't like this one as much. I'm going to keep it real with you. Army of Darkness, I fucking love that
whips.
movie.
Yeah.
I fucking love that
Great
movie. So, and I realized this is very tonally different to Army of Darkness. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe I had that in my mind. I don't really even know. But I just think that, and again, just my opinion, things in this movie were done better elsewhere. I still maintain I had to bump it up a little bit because this does have like a crazy legacy. You know, this really did have a crazy influence across the genre and across everything else. So with that being said, I can't give this like a fucking 50. So this is going to get a 70 from me, but I truthfully didn't really enjoy this one. This for me was more so one of those like, this is like when your grandmother, you know, she tell you about, you know, like cutting sugar cane or whatever else you got up to. Like, that's what this is. Like, it's some history. It's important for you to see. You may not necessarily enjoy it. You know what I mean? So 70 for me. So this one going to get a recommendation from you guys?
I think for me, yeah.
Yeah, I recommend this one.
Yeah.
Golden Seal from you guys?
No.
Nah.
Nope. So this is a point of contention here. Diamond in the Rough. This was an indie joint.
Was it really?
I believe so. I believe it got picked up eventually, but as it started, no, it wasn't like didn't have a big cinema behind it. It was just these guys.
Production company Renaissance Pictures, founded by Sam Raimi. Yeah, Diamond in the Rough. Let's go, baby.
Yeah, like their big premiere was like at this
Evil
one
Dead.
theater.
Well,
Yeah. All right, sure.
yeah, I think it gets it.
Let's fucking go.
I say Diamond in the Rough.
Yeah.
I could totally put it up for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the other reason
Haven't
why
had this one in a minute.
and that's the other reason why I'm not too harsh on this one. Dude was 20 when he made this shit.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm not harsh on it. And that's why I didn't harp on the arboreal scene. And that's why I said like he was probably influenced by those other scenes around him at the time, because dude probably came up watching those same movies and like did whatever else. And he was 20 years old. His judgment may not have been the best at that point in time. So,
and also, let's be real. I think a lot of us were still like kind of shitty in our 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
psh, that's y'all. I'm golden, bro. So,
Okay.
but yeah. So that being said, gets the diamond in the rough from us. Any last thoughts before we wrap this one up?
Nah.
All right, then. Well, I'm ready for the flame. Hit me. I'm ready. Or any of us, really. You don't just have to direct hate to me. It can come to other people as well. We're on Instagram and Twitter at DOTD Horror. We're also on Facebook. Don't open that door. Plus, you can catch all our episodes on our website. That is dotdhorror.com. But till then, stay frosty. Keep yourself safe. And as always, dear listener, don't open that door. Bye. You said my mouth was agape? I thought you said my mouth got gaped.